Welcome to the DragonShip, guys. Ho, ho, ho. Today, spank that monkey. We're in Men's Health November, so welcome to the DragonShip. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about spanking that monkey, guys. With a little bit of humor, a little bit of science, because it's come quite popular for us to have NoFap November, men's health, self-improvement. And a big part of that right now in our community is NoFap and semen retention. So let's talk about it. What is the science? What is the reality? But seriously, the male sex drive, if you really, really think about it, it is the economic engine of all human endeavors. And women are the fuel for that economic engine. Now, I'm quoting Aaron Clary here, but let that sink in a little bit, period. And you'll think, holy crap, all the civilization, it's all driven by human male sex drive. It's right behind our survival instinct. So today, let's talk about masturbation, NoFap, semen retention, abstinence, and why that may or may not increase testosterone. I talked about it's being talked about tremendously on the internet these days. And it's becoming more and more popular with some of the so-called red pill crowd. So, we're going to talk today about this, and the panel members I'll bring on. And remember this when we're talking about these. This is supposed to be fun. We enjoy these conversations, get something from it, and be thoughtful. And the panel members, we're going to speak not from expertise, but from experience in real life. And we're going to point to experts via studies, articles, maybe some, corollary evidence, and then you can make a decision on your own. Some of us have some really strong opinions on this, and some of us do not. But one thing's for sure, we're not really fence setters here. Us in the red pill, we like to look at the empirical evidence and what objective reality is, and then make our decisions and opinions and beliefs based upon that. Which means if the evidence changes over time, we can change our opinions. And that's the beauty about being human, because that takes us to the next level. Excuse me. It takes us to the next level and allows us to be extremely adaptable in life. So let's get right to this. And I'm going to do it a little different today. I want to start out with thanking everybody for joining us today. And I'm going to bring up some of these studies, and I'm going to comment on all of these and some articles and a video that came out before we bring the panel members up, because we want to dissect this, but we want to start out with a base. And here we go. So guys, take a look here. Thank you. And join the new channel, the DragonShip. Guys, on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like bell, hit the notifications, make sure and subscribe to the DragonShip. Every week we come out with a new video on Saturdays. Come join us, join the chat. This thing is just going to grow, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it and have a lot of educational elements. We're going to have some new guests coming in, new panel members. So please join the DragonShip. Let me wet my whistle. Hang on, guys. All right. So let's take a look at this. I ran across this earlier in the week, and we're going to listen to a few minutes with one of the most respected individuals out there, an actual man that I respect and regard as somewhat of a hero in many regards with his information and his intelligence. And I want to hear you guys comment on him eventually when we get to it. But I want to play it, and then I want to comment on what he's saying. I really appreciate the amount of effort this guy puts into his podcast. But this is important because this will really tie into the NoFap and the semen retention that's so popular these days on the internet. And this neuroscientist is Andrew Huberman. This is from the Clips channel, and this is him speaking on testosterone and energy will flow like crazy whenever you want, a scientific trick. Now, this is a little bit clickbaity, but what he says is important to set the stage when we start to talk about semen retention and abstinence. So let's listen to him. He gets comments on YouTube all the time. Here we go.
Comments on YouTube, I don't know why that is whether or not ejaculation adjusts testosterone levels. Sex and ejaculation itself does not reduce testosterone levels. However, abstinence or sex without ejaculation for a week or more will increase testosterone levels up to 400%. It's important to point out that while increases in testosterone promote seeking of mates and reproduction, in males, it's interesting to point out that testosterone is promoting seeking of sex, but it's also estrogen in males that's important for libido. If estrogen levels are brought too low, then men will completely lose their libido. So testosterone promotes sex-seeking behavior. And the real question then is, does sex itself promote testosterone? And
well, the answer we'll get into, but I wanted to set the stage for what we're going to talk about today. So let's do that and let's get into it. So some of the origins of seminal retention, actually come from ancient Chinese culture. And this article is also posted. All these articles and references will be posted into the notes, guys, for everybody to see for themselves. It's really interesting. This is religious in nature, and it has to do with energy. They didn't understand testosterone back then, but this was a big part of the monks that would do this semen retention. And this talks about the orange that's known so far. So go visit that. And then let's go ahead and let's talk about, what does the actual research say about semen retention? Well, the big problem is that most studies on semen retention focus on pregnancy, meaning that semen retention is essentially for women. No, I'm just joking. Listen here. There's some research that does indicate that not masturbating helps with sperm motility. So there's a study on that. Okay. But as you go down here and you start to look at that, patients told not to masturbate for 4 or 5 days, leading to sperm collection, the sperms can swim much better. And as you look at this, that's about it for the study. That's all you got. The next one. Is semen retention the same thing as NoFap? No, it's not the same thing, but they are often tied together. So the word NoFap, it means, it's known by other names. It's basically not masturbating, reserving from not masturbating. It's also called coitus reservatus, seminal conservation, sexual continence. It's also as part of practices. Some of these are religious, some are not, of something called Kai Yin Puyeng and Kai Yang Puyin, Kazara, Mathuna, sexual transmutation, tantric sex taoism, Taoism. So they claim that there's a lot of mental effects, less anxiety, depression, increased motivation, better memory, concentration, overall cognitive function, greater virility, greater vitality, increased muscle growth, thicker hair, deeper voice, improved sperm quality, deeper relationships, stronger life force, and better overall happiness. Is there any research to support this? Because that sounds like the magic pill we all need, doesn't it? Well, it's complicated because, research is lacking. And not having enough research doesn't mean that it's all false or that it's all true. But it does mean that research is lacking, and a lot of this stuff is, sold to people. And there's a lot of claims on there. So here they list a few studies where they conducted, the length of ejaculatory absence, semen characteristics. They noted varying qualities in the nature of these existing studies. There was one, an animal study in 2007. And then there's a small study in 2003. This is really what I wanted to bring your attention to today before we bring the panel in. This is a small amount of volunteers, 28. This study was done, and it noted that there was a difference between ejaculation changes in serum testosterone levels on the 7th day of abstinence. This one actually is the one that Andrew Huberman is quoting. So I find it very important. Okay, so in 2003, I wanted to know, because in the red pill, if this is scientific evidence, I wanted to go and look at this objectively. So I do. I come over and I look at it, and I found it here in PubMed. Okay, this is the National Institutes for Health, and this is a research on the relationship between ejaculation and serum testosterone levels in men. And I think it's important that every man understands his relationship with testosterone today. And this was done in China as part of a graduate studies program. The abstract, as you can see, the purpose, again, understanding of the relationship between ejaculation and serum testosterone levels in men. So the serum testosterone concentrations were of 28 volunteers and investigated daily during the abstinence period after ejaculation for 2 phases. The authors found that fluctuations of testosterone levels from the second to the fifth day of abstinence were minimal. On the seventh day abstinence, however, a clear peak of serum testosterone appeared, reaching 145.7% of baseline, P greater than 0.001. No regular fluctuation was observed following the continuous abstinence after the peak. So, what does that really mean? Well, they found something in 28 men during this graduate study, but something I also noted, 28 men in China. This has been retracted. This was retracted in 2021 by the actual university and the peer group that actually published it. Now, there's reasons for retractions. Retractions are done based on the science being flawed or bias in the study. Very interesting, isn't it? This is actually the study that he was quoting. And when I actually dug into it, rather than show it to you, it was measured in picograms versus nanograms per deciliter of serum testosterone. That's very different. That's 10 times factor less testosterone. So the actual raise was quite minimal. So when you get into the science, it's not quite the way it was purported to be in that article. I found that very interesting. I think men need to really understand what that means. So knowing that, I looked up, well, what about frequent ejaculation? They're saying that if you do this all the time, it's dangerous for you if you ejaculate. Well, this is medical news today. So in 2016, and I'm going to show you another one, frequent ejaculation, age, and the prostate cancer risk. Now, it still remains unclear whether or not ejaculating more often makes males of all ages less likely to develop prostate cancer. But, in 2003, the study found men who frequently ejaculated were younger and appeared to have a reduced rate of prostate cancer later in life. So that's kind of interesting. I wanted to find out what that actually meant. So obviously no more research needed to be done. So I dug and dug and dug. And I found this from the American Urological Association. For reasons not fully known, ejaculating more may lower the risk of prostate cancer. So ejaculation based on some studies through sexual intercourse or masturbation does not seem to protect against higher risk of prostate cancer. The studies do not sort out between ejaculating during sexual intercourse or masturbation and the effect of each on prostate cancer. However, look here. One study followed 32,000 men, not just 28 in a graduate study, but 32,000 men for 18 years and found men who ejaculated the most, at least 21 times a month, whether it was masturbation or it was intercourse, had a 20% lower chance of prostate cancer versus those who ejaculated 4 to 7 times a month. The more the number increased per month, the lower the risk. Now, they've done other studies with smaller groups of candidates or subjects, and they found that ejaculation rate has no impact on prostate cancer rates. But, on whole, 32,000 men increases the odds of probability. It's something to consider, that was put there for a purpose. And the purpose for us, what's the second purpose? The first purpose, survive in our lives. That's the number one driver. And the second one is to procreate. So holding on to it probably isn't the best thing out there. Now, here's the actual study itself, just so you have it. And it actually is very interesting. If you are a member, you could see the whole study, but they're not just making it up. It's right here. So let's talk about NoFap. What is NoFap? NoFap is the anti-masturbation movement redeveloped and repackaged. And if you guys don't know what it is, it's all over the place. And they've tied it into the no porn. And I would like to segment it away from pornography, because pornography addiction is a serious thing, just like any addiction. It could be Instagram modeling addiction or porn addiction. It's the same sort of thing with all the dopamine hits that you're getting. So just so you know what NoFap is, NoFap was founded in 2011 by this man here, and it was on a thread about the Chinese 2003 study. So this entire movement was based on the flaw study that was retracted. I find that fascinating. Very interesting. So it was all based on that and the ability to increase testosterone. It's since kind of shifted. It's a company. It's just recently set up as a foundation. It's worth an unknown number of millions of dollars, but somewhere over $5 million. And now they've focused on helping men stop porn by not masturbating. Kind of a strange anti-porn, anti-masturbation situation. So here's a way just to take a little break from this information. You want to increase your testosterone. Here is an absolute proven quantity, gentlemen. Now, I'm not going to say the size of increase in testosterone, but this is nature as it should be. The presence of a woman increases the testosterone in aggressive dominant men. Now, of course, this study was done in approximately 5 minutes after the introduction or normal contact of a woman in a man and salivary testosterone measurements. And the effect occurred, and it was showing that there was an increase in testosterone with how they rated aggressively dominant personalities. So when an aggressively dominant personality, which we might say alpha, testosterone goes up. And I left the link for that as well. So consider that, you know. And so women do make men throw away caution to the wind, and research confirms. This is a little bit of an article that explains it in more layman's terms. It's where I found that study. But it found that young men perform easy and more difficult tricks on skateboards when they're in front of young women. So essentially their performance goes up when young women are around. So we could speculate and we can talk it up with the panel on why that would be, but competition is good. Notice that in today's society, competition bad. Well, this is nature. Social variables predict between subjects, day-to-day variation, and testosterone men. I wanted to post this one up there too, because this one's really interesting, guys. This was done on 65 subjects, and you've often heard, I'm going to do some myth busting right now based on these studies. Married men have lower testosterone. Well, they studied 65 men, and this is the study that everybody quotes. Notice how they did it. They tested them 3 times during the week. How much time they spent with their wives, how much time they spent apart, ends up being in 2-hour increments, and it showed a non-significant lowering of testosterone in married men. So even I have gone out there and said, married men have lower testosterone. We got to fix that. Well, do we really? 65 men, and we're making this judgment on the entire population, and it's based on the day-to-day activities as measured in 2-hour increments. So pretty darn interesting. I left that one up there. Draw your own conclusions. I think maybe we spoke too soon about that. So here's another study about the anti-masturbation crusade in the antebellum American medicine. And this started in the late 1800s and the 19th century. I'm not going to read it to you, but it talks about the rise of circumcision in America. And its ultimate cause was to reduce masturbation in boys based upon religious beliefs that masturbation was horribly wrong. You could see this. So this NoFap movement even started earlier than that, and medicine actually supported it. If you go back and you look at some of these articles, it started with religious. This one's entitled Muscular Christianity. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but as you scroll through, they actually posted books on this. It's tied to eugenics. And as you come in and you look at it, all evil in the world was caused by the sex drive. This was very, very popular. And go take a look at this. It's freaking amazing on where this all came from. 5 insane ways. This is the history, and it comes from Cracked Magazine on why masturbation causes fear in modern society. Circumcision. Here is the history on it. And that's actually tied to eugenics, gentlemen. If you don't know anything about eugenics, it's very interesting. They want to reduce this so they can reduce the population of undesirables. So this is from normally a satire site, but this is actually in kind of tongue in cheek, but it's actually true. So take a look at this. I know you got to scroll through, but take a look at this one. These are all true items on masturbation. So one of the anti-masturbation crusaders was John Harvey Kellogg. He ran an empire and a health clinic on the East Coast. And, you know, you've often heard that he created, the Kellogg's cornflakes as a solution to masturbation. That's not entirely true. He believed in a bland diet would reduce masturbation. And part of that was to come up with bland foods for young men to eat. And this was promoted through something called the YMCA, which was the Young Men's Christian Association at the time. And they actually had pamphlets on men not masturbating. Pretty darn interesting. And they would scare them to death. And basically, it would tell young men, you be the devil, you go blind, you get hair on your palms, all kinds of strange things. The Grape Nuts guy, you can see some of the commercials there. It steadies a man. So they're just starting to learn propaganda, and they're talking about all of this NoFap way back then. It's pretty darn fascinating. Swastika biscuits. Interesting. You know, this was done with the graham crackers. Graham crackers were invented as part of this bland diet that would prevent masturbation. You can read about the guy that invented this. He was actually, you know, very good friends with Kellogg, and a lot of men actually believed this at the time, were hyper religious and had these really interesting beliefs, and they were instrumental in bringing circumcision to the day here in America and making it the norm. And if you don't know, you know, circumcised male has 20% less nerve endings in his penis. Therefore, the theory was that it would reduce masturbation and make it more difficult and less desirable, not realizing that hormones and the actual drive to be alive and procreate was driving this from before. I won't waste too much more time on this, but this is a fascinating article. You can go and take a look at that. Here's the history behind the man that did the graham cracker, Sylvester Graham. So I just wanted to go back and let you guys know that this is really, really interesting stuff around this semen retention and NoFap. And I want to bring my panel members up, and I want you guys to go ahead and bring them up, introduce them, and we're going to have a discussion about masturbation, NoFap, semen retention, and pornography. And those are three different things that we need to discuss. With that, let me bring up my panel members. We're going to bring up Glenn. We're going to bring up Phil Foster, Raith, Hudsman, Mark Daniels, and Randall. Guys, welcome to the DragonShip. I know it was a little bit long on the monologue today. I've got these websites and studies in the background. I hope you were taking notes, and we can go ahead and have a discussion on this whole NoFap thing or the semen retention thing. Let's start with the semen retention thing, and then we'll end with the NoFap thing today. So what are your thoughts on this semen retention that's become so popular? I know that I'm probably going to have guys in our space that I dearly respect that have bought in wholehearted to this semen retention thing and this tantric practice that they claim has a lot of science and research behind it that we found to actually be not true. So at least by the empirical evidence we hold today. And that's not to say that evidence won't come out in the future and we might have to rethink it. But for today, as logical, reasonably thinking, rational men, here's where we're at. Shall we start with Glenn?
Yo, yo, yo.
Yo, 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 brother. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good.
Fantastic.
Man, masturbation. Like, I don't even, dude, like, it's so long. Like, I thought that was a kid's thing, you know, but, you know, it's funny because I remember the one time where I had a coach tell me I couldn't have sex or masturbate as an adult. It was when I was competing in bodybuilding. And I remember telling Coco, I'm like, look, it's going to be a rough week. We're not going to be able to fuck all week long. And that didn't last very long because I totally broke that rule. But I just think the whole like semen retention, you know, NoFap thing is pretty ridiculous. I mean, it is a good push from the religious community to get people, you know, into it, you know, in a fun way, I guess, or to make them feel empowered. But yeah, I just think I don't think if you're going to do it for health reasons, you're not getting any healthier, or it doesn't really improve much for you, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially on the masturbation side. Now, is anybody here really familiar with this semen retention situation, energies? Because I do know enough enough to be dangerous, that when a man does have an orgasm, and this is part of the issue, if you're masturbating, having lots of orgasms, a lot of guys will say, when I stop, I feel like I have more energy. The reality is this electrobiochemical machine that we have. An orgasm is rewarded in the moment with certain brain chemistries for us during that time. It's different in a woman. And I'm being very general here, but for a woman, she gets a different ratio of these chemicals, right? So when a man ejaculates, he gets this burst of prolactin and vasopressin, and there's some small other chemistry that goes on, and there's that and this cocktail actually makes him tired. He loses his erection. This is normal, and this is his cue to get the hell out of here. What do they call it? Smash and dash, right? Or there's other terms for it, ejaculate and evacuate. And it changes your hormones are so powerful. You could be having intimate intercourse with this hot, wonderful girl after a night of drinks and dancing, and you have this massive orgasm. All of a sudden you look at her and she's overweight. She's got pimples on her rear end, and you're having something that we've all called, you just want to go home and sleep, and it's called post-nut clarity, right? Mm-hmm. It's not so much that there's clarity there. It's that you now have this flood of cocktails that makes you tired. And when you're tired, you want to be left alone. You don't want to do anything. Your body wants to rest. This was a production, right? And typically sex for men is a production. We're the ones that move. We produce the pumping action. It is actually, that is our responsibility for the most part. You know, we perform the act in a much more physical way than the female does. Now, the female, she'll have these orgasms as a reward. Her risk for this intercourse is actually that pregnancy and a child. So her reward lasts. She gets a rush of oxytocin, dopamine, and she doesn't have the rise in prolactins. So she will feel euphoric. And we interpret it as energy, as if she stole our energy. Gentlemen, it's not the science and it's not the fact. Okay. Understand that, and don't believe in these superstitions that continue to be propagated. I had another study I didn't go to, but it's on the science of abstinence before sport. And the only thing they could predict was the rise in prolactin level 2 hours before any of the sporting activities actually reduced performance. Anything else did not. So, and that was a double-blind study. I can bring it up. It's posted in the chat, but I thought we were going too long on it. But it's kind of interesting that these things have a life of their own, and they continue to come back around. What's old is new, and what's new is old again. And I see this semen retention really coming on the rise, and I see a lot of people selling people on the fact that now you can have an orgasm without ejaculation, which is known to be true, but they're selling classes and teachings and things like that. So there is a marketing component to this, What are your guys' thoughts on that? Anybody have any thoughts on this semen retention thing? And
I definitely do, because one thing that I have to say with my clients, doing the dating coaching, some of my clients, I'll tell them that before they're going on a date, not to, depending on how often they're masturbating, not to masturbate for at least the day prior, or if they can do a little bit more, because when you do that, you're much more likely to get an erection, and it's that drive to actually close out the date that can make things a lot better. Now, I absolutely hate what they used to say, like, "Oh, dude, you got to masturbate before you go out on your date. You got to do that." I think that is the dumbest thing in the world, because you're not going to have the energy to want to close with that girl. So I find it very interesting. I think that semen retention more than a day or a couple days is a complete waste of time. It's just my personal opinion, but I also love sex, so maybe that's a part of a factor as well.
So let me ask you this though. So yes, you can. There's something called a refractory period after an ejaculation.
And let's just define refractory period in case anybody doesn't know what that means. It's the time after you ejaculate before you're able to get an erection and do it again.
It affects libido. It affects thinking. It wants you to go to sleep. It's pretty interesting the way the body does that to shut you down. So it's something that also takes a long time to metabolize, and it's with you. And the more, you definitely can feel that. Anybody has felt that, there's definitely something to that. And guys that are habitual with the masturbation and have actually become addicted to pornography, that's a different animal. I mean, we have some one of our dear friends, Big Sky Traveler, understands this very good. Overuse of porn blunts the imaginative capabilities of the brain, which reduces the capacity for fantasization and likely leading to erectile dysfunction. Very, very much true. And this has a lot to do with brain chemistry when you talk about porn and its addictive qualities, and that's why things like NoFap come up and really tied into the porn situation. Masturbation is probably, if I was going to make a comment one way or the other, which I would, and I will right now, is, this is a natural function and you should probably not use porn. When you're ready to do it, you do it. And it looks like there may even be benefits to doing it, or you find and have sex, right? 21 times is what the study said, and you get a benefit. Here you go. Coming from the medical industry, many ill effects are blamed on masturbation are due to associated porn use, not the effects of masturbation itself. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yep. 100%. So, Hud, you recommend that they stay away from masturbation for a day before their date? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Especially if they are on a dry spell. It's really important to do that because you do have more energy, and because you're so far away with that refractory period, that being able to get an erection it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Now I've actually heard out there on dating sites the actual opposite of that. Have you guys ever heard this where they say, rub one out before you go on the date? You'll have that post-nut clarity to see if this girl's actually a candidate for a long-term relationship, and you'll make better decisions. Has anybody heard of that?
Yeah, I was mentioning it a little bit because I remember, I think maybe the first time I heard it was like back with, maybe they said in like American Pie. It was in like a lot of 90s movies that they would make that statement.
Yeah,
I think it's terrible advice, because if you're going on the date then and you've got really no sex drive, then I guess it makes sense if you're going to see if you guys actually get along, but it just seems counterproductive.
Yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever to me, but I know it was popular for a while. And it was said in Hollywood quite a bit, for sure. So let's get some different takes on this whole semen retention thing. I know that it was very popular in sports because there was this belief. Mark, you've been involved in sports. What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far today?
Well, I've done both. I've been on both sides of that coin. I've done, like they talked about, rubbing one out before the date. I used to do that when I was younger, just so I wouldn't be so, how would I say, so controlled by what I wanted. But I still had no trouble getting an erection if I wanted to have sex with her. So that wasn't an issue. I mean, I've always been a high sex, I don't know how to say it, highly sexed person, I suppose you could say. Mm-hmm. And now when I used to box, I would always abstain for 30 days. I tell you what it does, even if it is just psychologically, it makes you more aggressive, which makes sense because if you're out, let's say you're back in the caveman days and you're looking for a woman, you may have to fight another caveman to get her. I mean, so it does increase. What I notice, it does increase my desire to be with a woman, and thus makes me more, I'll say the word assertive nowadays, or aggressive, maybe a word we used a long time ago, to step out there because your desire is stronger. If you're rubbing one out every day or every couple of days or whatever it happens to be, your desire is going to be less. And especially if you're watching porn, from what I've heard, that would even lower your desire there. So I think it made a difference for me before I fought. But I'll say this on the reverse of that,
shoot, it looks like we lost Mark for some strange reason.
Am I gone?
Nope, you're back. I guess I had a technical error.
I was going to refer to what Glenn said. Now, contrary to what I'm saying, that doesn't make a difference. I believe if you're in, because I've been in a functional, let's say healthy, loving relationship, there's more of an empowerment there when you have sex with your mate, as opposed to if you're single and you're just going out to the bars or hitting up girls here and there and sleeping around. So there is a difference in how you choose to release your sperm. Let's say it that way. I don't think it disempowers you as much if you're in a relationship with someone you trust and you're giving to them, in respects to if you're just going out there to get laid and you're getting. I don't know if you can understand the dynamics of that, but there's, at least in my experience, that's quite different. So I never had sex at least 30 days before I fought. Well, I did have sex, but I wouldn't ejaculate. So I think that builds up a tension inside of you. It did me anyway, to make me more assertive and aggressive, especially when I got in the ring. But that's just my experience from it.
No, yeah, I totally understand that completely. I've had certain experiences where, that's heightened the experience later. I think they refer to some of that as edging these days. And there is something to that. At least, it's kind of like this, because it enhances that imagination and that sex drive and that desire. Look, this is what Big Sky said. This is what I was trying to get at. Masturbation without porn is an entirely different animal. It cultivates the part of the brain necessary for creative fantasization and can actually be used to treat ED. This is coming from medical expertise, guys. We know
this is an interesting one, because I was talking to Glenn about this. And I think, Glenn, didn't you say that you've never masturbated without porn?
Yeah, well, I said never masturbated without watching my own porn. Like, dude, I watch myself perform.
But you need it's the visual stimuli, and that's what's very powerful.
Look, okay, since you want to expose my private time, I'm gonna share with you. The only porn that I've watched is porn that I make. Okay, so, and yes, just so you know, me and Coco have plenty of videos for our enjoyment. So that's what I watch. But no, yeah, I got to be visually stimulated. I don't know. I just can't think about lay there and think about something and be like, oh yeah, here we go. I'm gonna rub one out to the nothing.
Yeah, everybody's different. Yeah, everybody is different when it comes.
I mean, Huds, not everybody's like you who has a hole in their pocket and just rubs one out as they walk.
The mind's a powerful thing, though. I mean, I will say there is merit to this, because if anybody's ever been in the lifestyle, they understand, performance and the ability to use your mind is huge, because it's not all about that. And you develop a deep sense of control, or maybe it's acting skills. I don't know, Glenn, you'll have to comment on it. But I liked what you did with the make your own porn. That's probably the best advice. It might even be an actor's retirement plan, for the future.
Oh, wow. That's funny. It's like, I can only watch Sterling Cooper so many times. Dude,
I love porn. I really do. But every time I come across a video where I see Sterling's face, everything just goes down. And I'm like, God damn it.
He's a good friend, man. And
hey, Thor,
Thor,
you should have Huds pull up the video that I just sent them.
Yeah, I got a funny one here.
Is it YouTube compliant?
Yeah, don't get his bounce too much.
Yeah.
It was from YouTube.
Oh, yeah, I know, but
filmed at
YouTube got us.
No, this video is from YouTube, filmed at YouTube.
So where is it? Glenn. Here we go.
How often do you masturbate?
Daily, like 5 times a day, like switch hitter, just bam, 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 bam. Like, you know what? When you shook my hand earlier, I just finished in the car.
How often do you masturbate?
Daily, like 5 times a day, like switch hitter, just bam, 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 bam. Like, you know what? When you shook my hand earlier, I just finished in the car.
I love that clip.
That's awesome, man. That's way too cool. Hey,
so the funny thing is, I was asked that question 2 years ago from YouTube when they had me go over to the studios out here, and they're just asking me 100 random questions, and that just happened to be one of them. So I remember that, grabbed that clip, and I just threw it up there for you guys, just for shits and giggles.
That's fantastic. That's so good. That's nice, Glenn. I appreciate that. That was
the guy in the chat said retention is about controlling my own body.
Yes.
There's another aspect of it that
yes.
Forget the esoterical part. If you can discipline yourself to not ejaculate when you're having sex or not give in to every time you want to get off, that builds up the strength of your will, and we need a will, as I've said before, to achieve our desires, because we have to keep focused. So I think what happens is a lot of times with people who happen to masturbate a lot, they're always focused on, it becomes an addiction. That's not everybody. It is a problem for some people, but everybody's different. Some people like to have sex 3 or 4 times a day. I'm a guy, 3 or 4 times a week could be more than enough for me. But everybody has a different speed they go at.
Oh, that's a very good point. This is true. This is very true. I actually support what is being said here. You need to be able to control yourself, delay that satisfaction. And he says delaying her gratification. Guys, the role of coquetry cannot be underestimated. To slow and command and build and climb that step slowly towards that final orgasm. It's really an enjoyable thing that you can have with a woman. It's quite a connection. It's not just the act. Oh, the act is quite good, but being able to control your body and control that is a fundamental. And I think there's benefit to doing that. However, if you're going to retain it for years on end or weeks on end, thinking that you're doing something to your testosterone or anything like that, it's really about your self-control. And if that floats your boat, go do it, man. I don't see that there's much of an issue there, but realize that, some people will go out and broadcast that there's a lot of science behind that, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
This is can I just say my opinion on masturbating, right? This is just my thoughts. I hate even the thought of it, honestly. Just in all honesty, I have a girl, if I have to masturbate, if I have to get to the point where I have to actually stroke myself, then I must not be doing what I need to do in the gym or leveling up, because I should not have to touch my own dick. That's what women jobs for. That's what they do. They touch the dick for me. So if I have to jack off, I'm gonna be pissed off. I'm not even gonna be excited at the end of the night.
Okay, so let me comment on that, because I enjoyed what you just said, brother. But in the industry that I work, it's very, very dangerous. And so we have all these tools, right? You got to check it before you use it to make sure it works, or you're going to die. So you got to do that. It's very, very important. So you got to check that tool to make sure it works properly in order.
Oh, the tool is fine.
Voltage, and you can have the proper load swap so that you can power the entire nation.
Tool maintenance.
Exactly. And then before you put it away, you got to wipe it down. You got to keep it clean. You got to put some silicone on it so it's preserved. You got to make sure.
Now I know where Huds gets it.
And then you can put it away.
Now I know where Huds gets it from. That explains a lot.
That doesn't mean that you don't have the girls touch it any less. It just gets.
You just gotta do maintenance. It's like with anything. You got to make sure that everything is flowing just fine.
I think a question a man needs to ask himself if he's going to do that is, am I doing this out of choice or out of compulsion?
Oh, yes.
Exactly. Or out of desperation.
Yeah.
Is it compulsion, desperation, or choice? What?
Or also here's a big one. Here's a big one. Boredom. A lot of times people masturbate out of boredom. And if you're bored, if you're choosing to masturbate because of that, then you need to figure out other things to do.
I agree with that, actually. And one of the things to do is going to fit right in with what, a lot of guys in this panel will talk about. And that's physical activity, complete physical activity. Because here's the issue with the masturbation situation. It's not wrong. Do it. You need to get rid of that stuff occasionally, do it responsibly. But here's the thing. If you're going to masturbate, you're going to do it a lot. Think of the time waste. You make yourself tired. That's time you could be doing 1 or 2 sets of weighted push-ups, pull-ups, physical activity that you missed out on. Just for what? Quick hit of dopamine? You can get that exercising as well. Move your body, be physical. There's a big problem in America right now. Young men don't want to work. They don't want to work. Not to be too conspiratorial here, but there is a big push, to keep men, sedated. And part of sedation is porn coupled with frequent masturbation. It makes men quite sedated and unwilling to work,
See, that's what I was going to say.
Right in with society's mold for us right now.
See, I was going to add to that, Thor, is it's too easy for guys to just sit at home and rub one out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if they do that, they have no incentive to like go out, meet people, you know, try to level up, try to meet a girl. Like, why? They're like, I could do this all in the comfort of my home, just sit here, like, you know, and it's just like they're already doing everything else at home. It's like, and this is why, like, I think masturbating can be very dangerous, because I know there's a health thing for it. Like, I read an article not too long ago saying that you know, if you masturbate once or twice a week, it's actually good for your health, you know, your prostate or something like that. And I was like, okay, I could see that as a health reason, but at the same time, how many times does that get abused? Like, how many times the guys go, oh, I need to go check my prostate or work on my prostate,
Becomes
you know,
an
and
excuse.
they're beating off, and it's just like they're not even trying to get better or trying to meet girls because they're just stroking off the whole time in the bathroom.
Right.
Not a bad point. Not a bad point.
See,
Let's
think
change it
that-
up and go to Randall. Randall, what do you think on all this?
So honestly, I think masturbation is a privilege. As a man, you need to earn that. If you can't get a woman to have sex with you, jack you off to do whatever, you need to improve as a man. If you're too overweight, you need to hit the gym, not toss off. Get your ass to the gym. I don't care where it is, be the garage or like Planet Fitness. Go work out. Put that energy towards something that actually fucking matters. I think semen retention is pointless, personally. Like, if you have enough testosterone, your body is in good enough shape, then it is going to be able to rise to the occasion no matter what. So I think that as men that who are addicted to porn and masturbation, it's an easy way out. They're not challenging themselves. Same with video games. They're taking the easy way. They're getting those hits of dopamine, and they're just not trying enough in life because it's too hard. And as today are trained up and raised into
Losing you, Randall.
submissiveness.
Yeah, the sex drive is a driving force. It's a powerful force to be wielded with care, and a person needs to be able to learn how to, how do I say, master that so you can use it wisely.
I really like what Randall said, that because that's what I had said last week when we were talking a little bit before this topic. Porn is a privilege, not a right.
Porn? Porn or masturbation?
I believe porn.
No, see, Randall said masturbation is a privilege. You said porn is a privilege.
I said porn is a privilege.
I don't
Porn
agree.
should not
We
be
just know
watched.
you like
Even
porn, so it's
Sterling
okay.
Cooper,
That's okay.
when a porn star tells you not to watch porn, that tells you something. Sterling Cooper has advised all men not to watch porn. If a man who is in the industry, his job, his livelihood, well, he now is expanded into other things, used to depend on that. Why would, like, that just, it doesn't make sense. Porn does not help men in my mind. If you watch it with your woman, watch the stuff you make yourself. Glenn watches his. Thor watches his. I'm sure Raith and Mark do the same. You probably do the same, Huds. I'm single, so I don't really have a partner to make my own with. But I would say that you should not be consuming others' material. You should be making your own or working on yourself so that you can then make your own.
Well, see, here's my whole point with it. So yes, I do make some of my own. Yes, I'm in a relationship. When you are getting laid, I don't think it's a problem to then watch porn. That's the privilege that I'm talking about. If you can't get a woman, then you don't deserve to watch porn.
Okay. Well,
I would say it's not wise to watch it because you're satisfying that primal need in another way, which is very unproductive. Because the whole sex drive is to procreate. So if you're just wasting it on somewhere else, it actually goes against nature. And we know what happens when we go against nature. It never ends well for a period of time if you do it over a consistent period of time.
So I think there's a risk with watching porn. However, I've spoken with Sterling personally on this. There is a use for it. I mean, there is a use for it. I mean, here's the thing. Even women who watch porn and say it's disgusting, they have had a study, and I can't remember it right off the bat, but human beings, when they watch it, become aroused. Straight up, they're going to become aroused. So even women who watch porn, when they watch it and say, no, I'm not all about that, they become aroused. And while men seek that variety and that, all of that diversity in the porn, for women, it can be anything. It could be animals having sex. And the reason I know this is in the study, they studied it with a large group of women, and even lesbian sex, gay sex, heterosex, porn sex, animal sex. Women's genitalia was measured, and it was measured to become aroused just by the mere watching, and it was aroused even more by the sub-vocalizations and vocalizations of the females approaching orgasm. Somebody on the chat, please verify this for me. This is a medical study.
I know what you're talking
Yeah, I
about.
know that
It revealed something really interesting.
Myron was mentioning that in one of his episodes.
Yeah.
I forgot the study, but yeah, I heard of that study as well.
So
It's
there
funny, but like look what Coco said, because this is exactly right. Like, you ladies, you check the dipstick. Guys don't have to check the dipstick. That's what women are for. They do the stroke and the kiss, and they make it grow, and then they climb on top, and then they,
So Coco, tell me, he doesn't hold it when he's sticking it in? That's checking it. What are you talking about?
Bro, it has its own mind. It does itself. Like he's a monster.
Okay. So that's fine. There is a reason for. Let me get back to my point with the arousal thing. Kind of lost track there. Back to talking about the study, and there is a place for the porn, right? And it's about the arousal. There is a place for it. And the reason I say that, we can't just say it's blatantly evil for all men. Look at the nearly $1 trillion industry it is worldwide. There's a reason for it. People use it. I think there's reasons to use it. I don't think it's something that you should use very often. I actually believe in using the imagination and flirtation much, much more. But I've seen where it has been used, particularly with the females, to actually get a very good aroused rate going. I like the idea of making your own, or at least pretending to when you're with your gal. It's kind of an interesting exploration of a fantasy life. But as far as the masturbation thing, going back to, I didn't quite follow you, Glenn, on her checking it. I guess I just lost the whole stream on checking something about masturbation, right?
Yeah, essentially, you shouldn't be the one masturbating. It's the woman's job to make sure it works.
Exactly. It's her job to make sure everything's in order. She does it for you.
Does what? Masturbate you? Why wouldn't you just have sex with her? I'm totally confused.
Well, because she gets it going. She primes it up.
We're talking about
all that tools.
itself.
All the tools checking thing that you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah,
that's what she does.
Okay, that's just, to me, that's just sex. It's not masturbation, so that's cool. Yeah, that to me, that's
it starts off with a few light strokes, and then it goes to a few more pokes.
What Sky is saying right here is exactly what I'm trying to convey. Treat porn like eating ice cream or other sugary, nutritionally empty desserts. Once in a while, on top of a healthy, balanced diet, it is a perfectly fine enrichment to life.
Oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely. That's exactly what I was getting at. Very well summed up. Thank you, Big Sky. For sure.
So I'm going to step in here since I've sat here for an hour and not said anything. This is my opinion. It's not that whether or not you masturbate, it's why you masturbate. Okay. If you're masturbating because you don't have enough confidence to go out and be with women or to approach women, that's probably not a good idea. If you're masturbating because you want to take time and you want self-fulfillment or a little self-joy, it's not a problem. But if you're using masturbation as an excuse, and then it becomes a habit because it's the only way that it's the only, your only understanding, your only interpretation of sexual outlet, then that's a problem. But the problem doesn't originate from you touching your penis. The problem originates from you not having the confidence to go out and be with women. So there's nothing wrong with masturbation. It's the intention behind it and the reason why you do it. That's the most important thing you need to understand about masturbation. Now, as far as porn, and it's been brought up, there's nothing wrong with porn either. But the problem with porn is young men and even older men that develop unrealistic standards for women. And by doing that, you limit your ability to be attracted to women that may fall within your range of being able to accomplish sex with. Now you combine that with the fear of women, or the fear to be able to approach women, then you become a porn and masturbation addict. Neither one are bad. It's the addiction to them that are bad, and the intention that drives the addiction. It's just that simple.
Raith, I got a question for you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that like it could also get guys to have unrealistic expectations? Like, you know, they've watched porn so long, they have, you know, been a huge connoisseur of porn, and so when they actually get involved with the woman and she's not performing as what they are used to watching, do you think that could actually play a role in some performance issues?
Yes, it does. And that's what I say. It sets an unrealistic standard. If you watch porn, and most porn stars, when you're seeing them in the movies, they're good 8, 9s, and 10s. And if you're only fantasizing about having sex with 8, 9s, or 10s, and you're using those projections, no woman that you could actually have sex with is probably going to be attractive to you. And
there's the visual.
Yeah, it's the visual.
There's also the actions. You know,
Right.
you see some crazy actions that go on in porn, and you expect that of just, you know, plain Jane from down the street. Like, she's not going to be able to do those types of things.
So and if you ever really listen in detail to what Sterling's talking about, that's what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it develop an unrealistic expectation for yourself. And that's what a lot of young men let porn do.
And I could validate that as a close friend of Sterling's.
You know, and I've sat through many conversations with Sterling as he's giving his lectures and stuff on pornography.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem is porn teaches the basic rudimentary ways to have sex. It's not teaching us how to be truly intimate. And whether or not men want to admit it, part of that sex these days is intimacy. We're no longer savages running around on the plains fucking for 5 minutes and running. We've also developed, you know, our ability to have an understanding of emotions. Now, some guys let that go overboard and they start becoming all emotive. But as we start developing relationships and stuff now, we understand that there is intimacy to it. And we understand that those hormones that get created from sex are intimacy hormones.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, I was with Sterling personally before he did his sexual escalation course, and he brought that up exactly. And he actually produced, you know, an adult-oriented video series on sexual escalation. And a big part of what he was doing is creating that intimacy on there, utilizing and putting on film porn that would educate guys on exactly how that is done using the escalation ladder and the dominance ladder, all of those sort of things to build that kind of intimacy with a woman, which is really interesting. So it brings it back into perspective. I know for a fact that even Sterling himself says there is a place for porn, but they don't recommend young men use it because, you know, there's a place for young men. They've got to, I mean, kind of like, I know you said earn it earlier, Huds, and Randall said earn your masturbation. Those are good. Those are good ideas for young men to have so that they don't overuse it. Big Sky said it's a lot like a sugary treat. You eat too many of them, you're going to be obese and you're going to have problems, you know. And while I was just talking, it kind of finally dawned on me, having what Glenn was talking about, having the girls check it. So when he went to YouTube, he must have had the girls in the car, right? When he said he did the right hand and then the left hand and just kept going back and forth. Can we play that video one more time?
Sure.
Well, while he's bringing that up, let me say something about intimacy. All right. We have to think about why men develop some sense of intimacy. And the reason is because we, over the long run, in order to stay with one or two of the same mates and protect the family, we have to develop some form of commitment to that. All right. If you just talk about spreading your seed, all right, any guy can go out and have sex with 100 women and have 100 children. Okay. But what's the survivability rate of those children if we were back in prehistoric times, or if we were just back 300 years ago? The survivability rate would be very low. So we have to develop some sense of intimacy, okay, to understand that those children are our legacy, and that we build a structure that supports development and sustainability of those children.
Yeah, because intimacy is really, like, guys tend to forget that. They forget that piece. They watch the porn and they watch how wild it was and how rough or crazy it is, and then they only want to live in that mindset when they interact with women or their girlfriend. And eventually, although it may feel good for your girlfriend, you're gonna be detached from her. She's not gonna feel that intimate connection from you. And she's going to end up, slowly, regretting or, reluctantly wanting to have sex with you. She's not going to get the same excitement, as she did when you were being able to connect with her intimately. And I think that's what Raith is talking about. It's not so much like, oh, you have to provide her sexual pleasure, although, that'll be great too. But it's the connection that you have with her is, needs to be there. But if you're just fucking her like a whore, like you've seen in a porno, she's not going to have that connection. It's going to be difficult for her to constantly try to connect to that.
That's a good
because
point.
she ultimately wants to be more than just that whore in the video.
She wants both.
Right. She wants to be.
She wants to balance of both. She wants to know that you're gonna make love to her, and then you're gonna fuck her like a rag doll. She wants the combination of both.
Came in, right?
See, that's the thing, is like when you think of when they talk in like BDSM communities about like aftercare, like you can have some of that like aggressive fun sex, but then afterwards she needs that nurturing to pull hormones back down.
Oh, good point. Yep, that is very true, Huds. For sure. No, I like Raith. You're such a wealth of wisdom, because really that's where the harm in porn is that intimacy. Now, it definitely can give you the fundamentals and the equipment, at least to think about what you should do. And in circumstances, it's just exactly like Big Sky said. It's just like eating ice cream and other sugary treats. Use it with your partner in the right circumstances. I'll tell you that Sterling will tell you that it is an entertaining, arousing thing and benefit to have in your tool belt. So, and I like what Glenn said on it too. You guys are all right. And then, it's a sex between a man and woman. It's an amazing thing. And when there's passion and there's genuine desire and the intimacy level is right, there's really kind of nothing like it. And this is why I said that the male sex drive is, the engine of all economic growth, and women are the fuel, and you got to have fuel to feed that engine. It's an amazing thing that we can bring together. But there's still a lot of guys that are out there want to sell you the semen retention course. And I do disagree with the semen retention thing completely.
Well, I mean, but if you want to talk about semen retention, you want to talk about tantric sex, it's not about increasing your testosterone. It's not about anything other than than basically gaining power and control over your intention, your desires, and your will. That's what tantric sex is about when it comes to men.
Yeah, and I think that used in that context, it could be useful for ED and things like that, and the ability to make an intimate connection.
To me, it's about building mental discipline, kind of like what Raith said. I did it for 26 months once, a while back, because all my life since I was 13, it was women or some masturbation or whatever. I always had a woman is what I had. But of course, when I was young, I did the masturbation, but I wanted to see what that was like, just to discipline myself so I wouldn't be so controlled by sex, but I would control the sex. Because like you said, Thor, look at all the things that have been built by men because they're driven by the desire for a woman, for sex from a woman, or from the validation from a woman. And until a man can actually control that desire and channel that energy into something productive, he's really just kind of being controlled by the desire. So it's about overcoming yourself, I think, is more. I mean, let's just negate any idea that there's some kind of magical result from it. The actual discipline is the discipline that you build from, because so many people, like we talk about this NoFap and people who are addicted to porn and masturbation, they're controlled by that. And as we all know, until we get control of ourselves, we can't control anything outside of ourselves. So it's more about your own.
Can I ask you a question about that? You said 26 months?
Yeah. No
masturbation, full abstinence?
Nothing. Had a couple of wet dreams.
Okay, so if there was so much benefit, would you do it again?
I don't know if I would or not. It was an experience I wanted to experience. And I did write a couple of books and I started a YouTube channel, but it wasn't magic. It was just that I was able to keep my focus off of women, because I decided I wasn't going to do that until I decided to. And then when I decided to, I met that girl down in the islands and who I dated a couple of years before, and I ended the streak, so to speak.
So I like what you said. It's a decision to get disciplined, right?
When I chose not to do it, and I chose to do it just for the experience.
What drove you to that decision?
That's what the tantric sex portion of it is. It's not about if you take some spiritual side to it, where they talk about holding control of your energy and power, stuff like that. But 99% of it, all right, can get distilled down to is gaining control over your will.
Yeah, that's correct.
99% of it.
So I don't need 26 months. I could do that in 3 days.
Well, everybody's different.
Yes, in essence, you could, yes, but like we've talked about in the past, it's whether or not you have the ability to change your beliefs, values, and stuff within a short amount of time. So but like I said, the biggest thing about it is, the guilt over masturbation comes from our Judeo-Christian values. All right. Because we don't want to appear as being the animals out on the plains trying to, screw everything that we can find, from a religious standpoint. But that also is, if you really look at it, that is also about controlling your behavior so that you can live a pious life, a virtuous and pious life. But like I said, the main problem with masturbation is, why are you doing it? When you take your mind doing it.
Right.
Just like it is with porn. Why are you watching porn? Are you creating unrealistic expectations for yourself when you look for women? And, we look at women and we say, they're looking for the best viable option. Okay. And it's based on, support and security and all that stuff. Well, we do the same thing, except we're looking for the best viable option to provide us with healthy offspring. We have the same intention to find the best person out there based on our own sexual strategy, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay. And I think that the Christianity in the 1800s and 1900s was a big driver behind this. I would counter, not really being a Christian, to saying that, is it truly that pious life that drives us to control behavior in others? or if would we be better off knowing the objective truth and that we have these drives, and that really, as you're growing up, you're going to have these drives, you're going to be wanting to have these energies. Masturbating for man and a woman is understanding their own body, and it should be used to understand their own body. It's not the end all be all. And I think there's a lot of myths behind semen retention as it's put out. If you're talking tantric sex practices for enhancement of intimacy, I could certainly buy off on that.
Well, I mean, are we not doing the same thing when we sit and tell women that, they should hold their virginity, not because of religious or pious convictions or virtuous convictions, but because men aren't going to be attracted to them?
Well, so
I mean, you're trying to separate the two, but you need to understand something. Okay. 90% of all of our beliefs come from some construct, whether the construct is a religious construct that we've developed over 5,000 years ago, or whether it's a construct that we're developing now where there is no sexuality. There's still constructs and they're beliefs that we have to develop in order to understand ourselves and how we relate to each other.
Right. I don't disagree.
So what I'm saying when I say most of the guilt, I said the guilt comes from, all right, the Judeo-Christian background. The objective truth is this, that we all have body parts, they all tingle, and we're going to use them one way or another. That's the objective truth. All right. The subjective truth is how I realize that, whether I do it through marriage, whether I do it through prostitution or whatever. That's the subjective side of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean we still don't have the guilt. Nothing in life is guilt-free. We're always making choices. And we're always making those choices based on our reality that we develop through our beliefs and our values.
Now, here's a theory. Now, because you guys brought up Judeo-Christian. So, and I'm just spitballing here. I believe that the reason why there's nothing in the Bible that says don't masturbate. Okay. I'm pretty sure there's nothing that says don't masturbate, but it talks about lusting and having lust. And when it talks to men about lust, they knows that God knew that men are visual. He created men to be very visual beings. So he knew that if men were lusting, then they would be, and in doing that, it would steal away. It takes away from them, essentially. So, and they end up, craving the lust. The lust is so strong, they end up abusing themselves over and over again, and it just takes it away. Now, I'm thinking, now, hear me out. Theoretically, I don't think it would be the masturbation is the sin, as the lusting over the woman that you are, thinking about or visualizing or whatever. That's the actual sin, according to, the Bible. That's just my theory. I don't know.
So I did say that, and it brings a lot of shame out, because I completely think that's BS. But I understand where it came from, because back then they also had polygamy. They had multiple wives. Men would covet after other women because they couldn't have it, because the high level men would have all of the women, and this would cause violence because the men's drives for sex, they would covet after each other's wives or harems and things like that. So I completely understand where that came from in history. Absolutely. I don't deny that as being important. It creates a lot of shame too around the natural function of your body. I have no issues with masturbation, guys. But at least that's personally and in practice. And I have access to women 24/7. So talking about shame, Phil, I see that you've joined the chat today, and we're talking about masturbation, NoFap, and semen retention. I hope you got to catch some of this stuff. What are your thoughts here on what we just talked about, especially the poignant parts that Glenn and Raith so eloquently put down for everybody on the religious aspects?
Yeah, so I'm under the firm belief that, what Raith said, the constructs, right? And, I think that everything is here I go, man. Y'all just put your seatbelts on. No, the real thing is thinking is this, right? Is it's definitely all these systems, all these controls have been put in place to hold you back. I think that masturbation to a screen, addicted to pixels versus masturbation in a natural situation, they're completely different. I do not agree with semen retention 100%. I do not agree with it at all. Raith had made it. I wanted to, I'm glad you mentioned, let me speak here real quick. And first off, my apologies, guys, for the delay in getting on here. The big thing is, Raith, when you had said, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said we compare, how did you word it? You worded it a certain way. It was like, masturbation to a woman holding her virtue. Can you say that one more time for me, before I continue with my dissertation, just so I don't screw it up?
No, the comment I was talking about was we have an expectation that women hold their virtue.
Yes.
And by that, we compare that to and it's about sexual strategies. A woman's female sexual strategy is that, she wants the best provider, best security that she can get. Men want the best woman that, the woman that would best pass along their genetic lineage. Okay. So you take those two, and those are values. The masturbation doesn't come into play other than the fact that when if we masturbate to pornography and stuff like that, it creates unrealistic sexual expectations for men about what they can achieve as far as women go. All right. Every guy, we sit here and tell every guy you deserve a 10. That's bullshit. Not every guy deserves a 10. Okay. And the thing is if you're going to do that, and you need to look at that construct, okay, if we're trying to satisfy our sexual strategies, and then we take outside influences to develop what we think our level of achievement is, it creates a false narrative. All right. Just like we sit there and we tell women, you don't deserve a guy that's a 1%er. If you're if you're a 6, and you don't deserve a 1%er because you're not taking care of yourself.
There you go.
Okay. But the same thing, if a guy's addicted to porn and masturbation, he doesn't deserve a 10. All right. Yeah. Why? Not because he's lacking, but because he hasn't worked on the root cause of why he is addicted to masturbation or pornography or whatever else his addictions are.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm ready to go. I just wanted to make sure I got it right, so I didn't screw this up. So I agree with you in that 100%. I think there's a lot of shame that goes into masturbation. And here's the thing, right? When guys are beating their meat and they're looking at a screen, okay? They're looking at a screen and they're putting these ideals in their head, and they want that sexual strategy that they see on that screen, and it becomes imprinted into their minds. Okay. Are they the man? Are they a capable man to even achieve what they're fantasizing or thinking about? I think when it comes to women's virtue, 100%, women definitely need to hold their virtue. But I also want to agree with you that says that, not all men deserve a 10. The thinking is this, when it comes to not beating your meat, I think that's a completely unrealistic way to go about living life. It's completely natural and normal for you to want to discover your body, both men and women. And in my experience with women, and I know this show is primarily about men, and in my experience with women, we'll start with them. From a young age, they are discouraged through that construct you're talking about to discover who and what they like and who they are. Woman after woman that I come in contact with, they struggle to even share their fantasies. Okay, even if you put them in a situation and you give them the comfort level that they need to explore who they are and what they are, they live unfulfilled lives. It's amazing to me that men on the reverse side of things, they get addicted to porn and they live these outlandish fantasies through a screen. I think that beating your meat to the screen is the problem. I think mutual masturbation, both men and women, is an important thing. It's who you are as a human being. I don't think that there is, oh, you're wasting your seed, you're losing your brain, all this other stuff. I disagree with that. I think sex is a definite transfer of energy between two people, whether you're mutually masturbating or if you're masturbating by yourself, you are expending your sexual energy, right? And that's what sex stands for, right? Is sexual energy exchange. That's what that means. It's a shortened version. People think sex means, hey, I'm going to do the down and dirty with my girl or the down and dirty with my guy. But the real story is that's what that stands for. So you're expending your sexual energy to a screen if you're a man. Okay. So in my thought process is this: if you have a woman in your life that is open sexually or closed sexually, okay, she's closed sexually, she's ashamed of having these thoughts and feelings about masturbation. She is ashamed of, expressing what she truly wants to you. And then you go back to the screen instead of dealing with those issues with that woman in your life. I think that's where the problem lies, right? I think that people need to understand that when it comes to sex and the things you desire, if it's a healthy direction and not an unhealthy direction, it's perfectly fine. Both men and women, but so we're talking about men. The unhealthy aspect is guys get addicted to the pixels. That dopamine comes from the screen. They want what's on the screen. And so these guys, they get in these situations where they get so addicted to what they see on that screen that they can't even get turned on when there's a real woman in front of them. And I've trust me, I've talked to women before. They've been in sexual situations, even though those sexual situations weren't appropriate. And she's like, the fucking dude couldn't even get his dick hard. You know what I'm saying?
That's happened to me personally. That's happened to me before when I was in cycles of watching way, way, way too much porn.
Yeah, they can't get their dicks hard. So they have a real woman that is attractive right there in front of them, and they can't even have that sexual energy exchange with that woman. Okay. And so what happens is you have a woman now that is unfulfilled, and you got a guy that's addicted to a screen. And I think we see more and more of that in society today because of these control mechanisms, i.e. the church. Sorry, Glenn, I love you. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or rude to anybody that believes in the church and all that stuff. I think that human beings you're supposed to experience these things. You're supposed to be comfortable with your body. You're supposed to be comfortable with your partner and discussing what turns you on and what fantasies you have. The unhealthy piece to the whole thing is when men get addicted to the screen. So how many dudes live in shame and how many women live in shame because of these systems of control? It's super important to understand that our solution, it's kind of like, it's the NoFap, Semen Retention crew out there on social media says, oh, well, just don't beat your meat. You're going to be a powerful dude in 30 days. Baloney. You still have those addictions to the screen. You still have those desires. You're just personal. You're like withholding them. It's kind of like going full carnivore. Oh, I'm never going to eat carbs again. I'm overweight. I'm just never going to eat any carbohydrates because they make me fat. What happens when those people do that? They fall back to the carbohydrates, eat the ice cream, the cake, all that other BS. There has to be some sort of moderation there. But understanding that when you are a human being, number one, and you have these desires, and number two, you develop a relationship with somebody else, there should be no shame. Okay. And I think that's the whole point behind it, right? Is understanding that once you can live without shame and you live in your own truths, it's a non-issue anymore. Because here's the deal. Say I'm addicted to the screen and I want to beat my friggin' meat every day, and my girl's over here and she catches me beating my meat to the screen. In a healthy relationship, she would come to me and say, hey, I think you got a problem with that there. Let's talk about it. The problem is people don't want to talk about these topics because they're too taboo. It's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So directing guys to understand that, hey, you have an unhealthy relationship with that computer screen or your tablet or your phone. Because let's face it, porn's everywhere. Porn isn't the issue. Let me tell you, I'm going to say it right here on this podcast. My girl, literally, she'll put some porn on the TV and we'll have some friggin' fun with it.
Of course.
We enjoy it together. There's nothing wrong with watching porn. The problem is the disconnect between not having that sexual energy exchange with your girl. Enjoy it with her. Okay, so guys need to understand that, you know, living in absolutes in anything in your life is a horrible way to go about it. You know, there's all these studies that say, oh, you're going to be this powerful guy if you don't do it, but it's against your biology. It's against who you are, man. Let me tell you something. Every dude on this friggin' stream right now has beat their fucking dick. I don't care who you are. Deny it all you want.
I have.
Yeah,
Thor,
and so
Meat Hammer. I carry
Hey,
Thor.
Phil, can I
Meat
push?
Hammer with
Let me
me
push
every
back a
day.
little bit, Phil.
Come.
Push back a little bit. The only thing I was going to say is this: is that what may not be a stumbling block for you, right, may very well be a stumbling block for someone else, right? So, like, what may not slip you up may slip me up. And so, like, the general rule is like, look, if it's going to be a problem, if you already have a problem with it, if you already have an obsession with it, you definitely don't need to be doing it. But just because Phil could do it doesn't mean you could do it, because he obviously has it. It's not addicting to him. He doesn't live for it. He doesn't need it like that. But for the guys that do, when you hear Phil say what he said, Phil's not, condoning you to just beat your meat all the time. Although he's saying, like, yeah, it happens. You do it. Everybody's done it. But the fact is, what you're missing is Phil's in a relationship. He has girls. Okay, he doesn't even have to beat his meat if he didn't want to. He doesn't even have to watch porn if he doesn't want to. And for the guys that are, taking the easy way out and just saying, well, Phil said we could watch porn, so we're all going to watch porn together. No. You have to make sure that it's not going to set you back. Because some guys, it definitely sets back. And you don't want to be that guy. All right. If it's not your vice,
Glenn,
then you're good. But if it's your vice, try to break that.
Let
I'd
me offer
like to comment on it too, Thor. So
yeah, let me offer some evidence, or at least some corollary evidence, in the fact with the increase in that there is a sexlessness amongst young men ages 18 to 30 with the rise of porn and masturbation. So there is some sort of correlation with that. But I also have to back Phil up on the fact that shame is a big part of that. And that shame is being broadcast by the church for sure. I mean, look at it this way. They still broadcast that if you're a man and you watch porn, some of the highest addiction rates of porn is with church members. And the women consider a man that masturbates cheating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty wild, and I completely disagree with that. That is.
Oh, no, I agree with you on that. 100%.
Also, yeah, I mean, but it's true. That's what's out there. So, and that's not the case. Masturbation is a normal function of the human body. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what it is. It's the context. And here's the thing, just like anything else in life, the context matters. And the context matters not just for porn, but anything. You can drink too much alcohol. You can drink too much coffee. You can get addicted to pills. You can do all of those things, and they have the same results, even with sex, masturbation, the whole situation. So the shame thing's a big deal. And it really affects women in this really, really detrimental way. I mean, we sit here and we shame women for their body count right now in this space, in particularly as far as their ability to have long-term relationships. And we'll talk about that in the future. But if that's the case, if a woman masturbates to orgasm, is that the same thing as a body? So every time she masturbates and has that chemistry, does she lose her ability to bond? That's a question I'd pose to the men on this panel. How do you take that, and how is it different?
So let me address Glenn's thing first, okay? And I'm going to say something about what you said too.
Sure, thanks.
I don't think that the blaming or the guilt-based masturbation these days. I mean, let's face it. If you go to church, if you went to church 20 years ago, you would go in and you would see the pews are packed. Okay. If you go into church now, you'll see that there's probably about
Nothing but women in there.
A third to half of the pews are packed. Okay, and I'm talking about the standard religions. I'm not talking about the new feel-good religions where everything's okay and God forgives you and that kind of stuff. So, but I have noticed even a rise in feminists attacking men and creating guilt for masturbation. Okay, why? Because there's no viable men out there. 80% of the men aren't viable to be in relationships with or to have sex with. Now, there's reasons for that, and they push that agenda, but they created that agenda too. The other thing is, and I want to say this, we are not telling you to go out and masturbate. What we're telling you is if you have a proper male perspective of yourself and life, it shouldn't be an addiction. It goes back to what I said to begin with. You have to look at your intent for why you're doing it. If you're doing it because you don't have the skill set or want to develop the skill set, and it's easy for you to do that because it shields you from having to face women or face life, that's a problem. You need to work on that. All right. If you're doing it because it feels good, you're doing it because you're trying to explore your body, and it doesn't inhibit you from having sexual relations, it's not an issue. It's why are you doing it? And what's the intent behind it? Because way too many young men use it as an excuse, and then they let the guilt. Most of the guilt isn't because of they're not having sex. Most of the guilt comes from their feeling of inferiority to go out and be men. There's a big difference. And that's why I got into this space. Not because I had that problem, but I want to help young men with that problem. And I think every man on this panel came to the space for the same reason, to help young men figure this out. If you want to discuss the origins, whether it's Judeo-Christian or it's feminism, shame, that's all fine. And that's going to be relative to whoever we're talking to or about at the time. But to sit here and blanketly say, like we hear so much in red pill content, your problem is you masturbate. That's not your problem. Masturbation is not your problem. It's not having the right mental attitude about being a man is your problem. And that's what I think Phil was saying. And that's why I want to clarify. We're not prescribing for every young man to go out and masturbate. Okay? Because they're going to do that anyway. What we are saying is discover why you're doing it. And if it's having a detrimental effect on your ability to perform as a man and in society. And I want to quote something to you. You have to find the Bible. I don't remember it. I've read, but the origins of masturbation in the Bible comes from one scripture in the Bible, and I can't remember what it is right off the top of my head. But the scripture says it's better to cast your seed in the belly of a whore than on the ground. Okay.
Yeah,
for some reason that became, hey, it's bad to masturbate. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's an obscure piece of text in the Bible come to create all this guilt based on the church fathers looking at it and say, oh, this is what it means. Maybe it means it's maybe the content behind it is it's better to be a man of will and being able to attract women and progress the species or the race than to cast your seed on the ground.
And let me just clarify, like I wasn't implying that Phil was saying go out and masturbate everybody. What I was saying, I don't want you to take what he's saying and run with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we definitely want you to level up. If you want to jack it off, that's your business, but don't let it be a hindrance to you from your growth. That's all we're trying to say. If it's going to cause you to slow down and not be successful, if it's a stumbling block for you from you getting to the point where you need to be in order for you to level up, then don't do it. Stay away from it. It's just like drinking. If alcohol is your problem, stay away from alcohol. If
And
that's
just
going
like your
to
friends, if
level
your
up.
friends are your problem, stay away from your friends.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Wow.
I wasn't saying that, you know, he was wrong. I'm just saying if it's wrong for you, because you know what your problems are. You know what stumbling blocks you have in your life. And if it's a hurdle for you, then the smartest thing to do is stay away from it.
Well, it's better anytime you're having problems with something, you know, avoidance or stepping away from something is a solution. It's a way to cope with it. It shouldn't be your only coping mechanism. And you should be able to look in your future after you've changed things and you've developed some understanding of yourself to step back into those situations and see if you can still do it. Okay. And if you have control over that. But like I said, it's never about the problem I have with a lot of content creators is they live in these absolutes. And it's not about the absolutes of life. We live 90% of our life in the fucking gray area, guys. And if you don't believe that, start looking at your life. We are constantly battling with our values and our beliefs based on social constructs, emotional development, and emotional interactions with other people. And this is what a man does. A man learns how to navigate that.
Yeah.
And if you're not capable of navigating that, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So I have a creative interpretation of that scripture, Raith. I
Okay.
think that what it was actually telling us is that sex with a real woman is actually better than masturbating. Would the panel agree?
I think
Yes.
that's what it's saying.
Absolutely.
I love
Hands
this.
down.
I love the smell and feel of a woman. Yes.
Put your hands down, gentlemen. Put your hands down and find some booty.
So that being said, and knowing that, I have known a couple of exceptions to that rule of some very high. Now, here is the difference. A couple of multimillionaire, very successful men that were very good, had high levels of social acuity. So they were desired by women, but they chose not to date to focus on their career. They really got a charge out of that. They did not. I don't know whether they masturbated or not, how they solved that problem, but they did not date women for at least 5, 6, 7 years until they really secured themselves. I know 2 like that. So I don't really know the answer there, but I know that there are men that have done that, you know, have avoided the women altogether.
You talking more like a monk mode, pure focus?
I've watched it twice. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's like the MGTOW guys, right? Yeah, I mean, they've given up on women.
So I want to speak. I don't want to
masturbate using toys or dolls, right?
I want to speak on that comment there that Tice said before we keep going on with it, because I've got experience with fleshlights myself. Now, what's the opinion on having any fleshlights? You can have some pretty fucking wild orgasms with them.
Mm-hmm.
However, it goes back to what Phil was saying about watching porn with your wife or your girlfriend or whoever. Same type of thing. You probably want to include it as a mutual masturbation type of thing instead of using it yourself. Because I'll tell you what, some of those are fucking wild and they're amazing, but then it makes you not want to go actually find a woman. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Oh, good job. Yeah, I'm glad you addressed it.
Yeah.
And for us who don't understand the term fleshlights, I guess I can look at that. Fleshlights.
It's a masturbation aid. It's like the MGTOWs,
It's a
they
fake
have
pussy.
to have the sex dolls, which are actually getting better and better and better. And they're even working on sex robots. I mean,
I never heard of such things. So
right. I mean, have you guys heard of the new robots that are out there in Japan where they have, I mean, you squeeze the breasts and there's a gel and a reaction in there that causes the contraction of the vagina. All these, they're getting there. They're self-warming. It's an aid in masturbation without the woman herself.
But
And they're throwing a whole lot
MGTOW
of
guys
money.
are going to go crazy over those.
Problematic. They
they're
will. It's
throwing a whole lot
problematic
of
in
money.
certain areas, but it's out there. And so to address it, it's part of the masturbation thing because, all of us here, women's obviously our preference, but in some cases there is a growing need for men to abandon women, as we see with the sexless men between 18 and 30.
I don't want to say it's a growing need. I think it's a growing obsession. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too, because they're throwing a lot of money into these robotic things instead of leveling up.
Yeah.
Well, it's created a huge vacuum in the marketplace because
it's
look
almost
at the
like it's like
OnlyFans.
Like, do you
The
guys think
prostitution.
do you guys think it's like trying to find like the cutting corners, like trying to find an easy way out, but still get some satisfaction?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Well,
exactly
see,
what
here's
it
the
is.
thing. Here's the thing. Having used some of these things before, if you're not getting laid and you use one of these things, you're going to give up on a woman. A lot of these things actually do feel as good as they say, and that's what's so dangerous about it.
I agree. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
not that
Well,
intimate connection, though. That's the
Yeah.
problem. Is there's not that. But if you don't know any better, some of these young guys don't know any better. Then they don't think there's anything more to seek for. They just get that feeling. But there's so much more to a sexual experience than just that physical feeling. And when you combine that physical feeling with that intimacy, there's just I don't know anything that compares to it.
And is there anything more pitiful than not having? Sorry about that, guys. Is there anything more pitiful about not having the ability to interact in an intellectual, emotional, and physical way with a woman than saying, well, the best thing to do is to grab a machine or a piece of apparatus and deal with life that way?
Well, I agree.
It started with this. It started right there with this.
Yeah.
And now
Well-
we're taking this and we're turning it into a life-size feature in our bedrooms.
I mean,
Well, and so
who
like,
makes the sandwich afterwards? Like, Huds, when you use your flashlight,
gotta
who
make
makes
your
the
own.
sandwich? Do
I
you make
haven't-
your own sandwich?
I haven't used any of the flashlights in a while, actually.
I have the best business opportunity for you guys if you'll hear me out. He just
All right,
brought up
let's hear
sandwich.
it.
We had sandwich and we talked about this on one of our episodes before, right? So imagine this, guys, if we pull our resources, what we can do here. So when I said need, here's the need. It's a business need. I'm so Machiavellian. The sex robots from Japan we bring over here. We create our own cadre with the girls we know for OnlyFans so that it's actually Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connected so that when these young men grab these and buy these or rent these or lease these sex robots, there's actually a connection to artificial intelligence that connects them with OnlyFans girls so they actually can talk to them and interact with them via the phone while they're having sex with these sexual robots, right?
Dude,
and then
don't-
on top of
this is-
that, there
that's
is a
brilliant.
sandwich that's actually delivered to the door when the sex is done because there'll be sensors built into the robot and the phone. And we market it ourselves, this group here. It'll be the DragonShip, the ultimate sexual robot experience. How about it? Let's get
It's
in.
like-
Like,
Viking
DoorDash
Maiden?
at a whole different level.
Order
DoorDash
your
at a-
own Viking Maiden.
let me ask you guys something really quick. You know, not only do the pixels, these guys are so addicted to these pixels, man, and then failed relationship after failed relationship. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there like this, the quality of Western women. Okay. You got to understand there's a lot of things going on with this whole thing. The expectations of a low value woman are so frigging high. Number one, the MGTOW movement, number two, and the proliferation of pornography, man, you can get 4K porn on it right there on your phone. And so you look at guys that have been zeroed out in relationships or zeroed out in life, and they've had failed relationship after failed relationship, and say they do come across a decent woman. She could be a 7, but she's been a hoe. How can you blame these guys for following that path? Okay. And that's my point is it's not necessarily a thing that masturbation is just the medium. I think that the fundamental issue is the degradation of our society, Western society as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that is like the fuel on this fire. And that's why it's going where it's going now. That's why you see such an investment into sex dolls. That's why you see such an investment in these fleshlights and things like that. The problem is that when you have a group of people, and I'm going to use men that have had failed relationship after failed relationship with women and are dealing with an insurmountable amount of pedestalization of women, can you blame them for going the path that they're going? You can't. So what are we all saying right now? We're saying that hey, you know, if masturbation affects your life, don't do it. Hey, if alcohol or drugs affect your life, don't do it. Whatever's the problem in your life, you know what the problem is. That's what Raith said. You know, the point is how do you navigate that as a man, as a young man, as a middle-aged man? I know more middle-aged men beat their meat that have wives at home that don't. Okay? And it all comes down to one friggin' word, and that's shame. Dudes are too friggin' afraid to look their girl in the eye and say, this is what I want from you. Let me show you on the screen what really turns me on. Okay?
That is so true.
So the moral of the story is, if you're a man and you're struggling and you have these fantasies, and this is the same for girls too. I've done a lot of exercises with my girl. I'll just say it right here, right now on the stream. One of the big exercises I've done with my girl is I've actually had her write out her fantasies and read them to me. I don't care how dark, how crazy, whatever they are, write them out. Let's talk about them. And, you know, once they're read and she processes that with me, it's kind of like, that's nothing to be ashamed about, man.
Exactly.
You know, and there it is. It's that word. It's shame. And so, and then you throw in the fuel of the quality of women in the West and the poor choices they have made to degrade their value and the loss of peace on men. Can you blame men for saying, you know, I'm going to go MGTOW, I'm going to get me a fleshlight, I'm going to spend $5,000 on a sex robot, even though I got to make my own Sammy, Thor, even though I got to make my own Sammy when it's over? You know, in the end, it's all about one thing. It's your peace, man. You know,
well, as long as you wash your hands afterwards, like, I think you're good.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, Phil, are they living in peace?
No, they aren't. They're tormented because they're addicted to a screen.
Right.
And
Well,
so
there's one thing I want to say this before I forget it. This is a gem from Game 9000 that we did. It's something that I had brought to people. What you're saying with writing out the fantasies, one of the things you can do is potentially finding a BDSM checklist and have her fill it out on her own, and then you can compare things afterwards. And on that list is a whole bunch of different things. What are you interested in? What are you not? And then that way you can kind of see into her mind without having to have that tough conversation that a lot of people don't want to have.
Well, what I was going to say is this, like, Phil, what you said, like, I totally understand. Like, I know many guys that you literally just described them to a T, you know. And I know a few of them that have done that, have gone that route. But after a while, they hate themselves so much for even going that route. It actually becomes like a motivation for them to get back out there. So I could see if it was for a short time, you know what I'm saying? Like, while you're charging up the batteries, you're trying to just get your shit together. I'm not saying it's the problem. I'm saying when you decide to quit, you know, because then we all know that, like, once you decide to give up, you're giving up on part of life right there. You're giving up on part of life, and you're saying, you know what, I'm gonna supplement life experience with this non-living thing. And they're still cheating. I mean, yes, they may be, you know, not having to deal with the crazy wife or the crazy ex, but they're still living less than optimal. They're still living less than they desire. And we don't want the guys to be living less than they desire. We want them, if they have to be there for a short time, be there. Get what you need, and then come back out. Don't stay with those dolls. Don't stay with those toys. You know, if it's going to be a supplement it for a short time, but get back out there.
Yeah, there's some
sex supplements. Phil, I think that's our next line to go in. Sexual supplements.
Sex supplements. Here we go.
Here's the thing. It could be more than just toys.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man, what a great discussion, you guys. This is fantastic. So, in my opinion, let's go ahead and get a wrap started here. I want to hear from Randall before we get the wrap started. Randall, I mean, you're in your 20s. you kind of fit some of the demographic that we're talking to. What's your thoughts on all of this going on? You get a spot where you can speak?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm actually mid-30s.
Okay.
But I think a lot of the shame that people feel is because as we grew up, I don't know about others, but like I grew up in the church, and the church during the 90s very much shamed any sexual relationships, like before marriage. It was the no premarital sex, no masturbation, no lust. It was like you would go up on stage and like take a purity pledge. And so I believe that the church, as great as it is in some circumstances, helped develop a lot of the lasting shame that people my age, younger and older, suffer from. And so I think that, and it's like there's books out there that can help, but some of them are also further shaming. So it's, you have to pick the options. If you're addicted to like masturbation and all that, you got to find a way to do that. Just slowly wean yourself off of it. But ultimately, that shame, you're going to have to basically have a meeting with yourself and settle it. You're going to have to let it go. Because otherwise, you're going to live a stunted life. That's why you see so many people who aren't really living. They're existing, but they're not living because they have so much caught up inner turmoil that they struggle to go after what they truly want. So many people are unhappy these days because ultimately they're unhappy with who they are inside, and they're not putting in the effort to become better. But other than that, like I believe that men should just be working on themselves, fitness, getting in shape. Like I'm on my own journey, so it's something that men need to focus on. And it's as great as those dopamine hits are, to find something else that can also give you those dopamine.
Good point. Good point. I appreciate that. We'll go ahead and start a wrap on all of this. Let's go ahead and get started then. Glenn, your final thoughts on NoFap and NoFap movement as it's based in the foundation right now, semen retention, maybe even the shame that goes with masturbation. And tell us what your thoughts are. We'll start with you.
So I'm gonna say this. One, NoFap is a joke. So, if you want to fall into a gimmick, that's fine. Whatever you do, use it for, it's great. It's your prerogative. But at the end of the day, I think that people could get shamed into NoFap as well. And I don't think it's something good. You should never be shamed in anything. And the other thing is, you have to ask yourself, why do you feel shame when you're doing something? Is it because it's a belief that you actually hold, or is it because you're accepting or adopting a belief that other people put on you? Other people hold it. They talk about. Are you trying to live up to their standard, or are you living up to your standard? Because having frame is living in your perimeter, your standard, and your guidelines of how you view the world and how you want, to live in the world and what you want to achieve in the world. So if masturbating is, watching porn is okay with you and that's your frame, then you shouldn't feel ashamed for it. But you need to ask yourself, why do you feel shame if you have shame? And just move on from there. But you know what? You guys could do what you need to do. Always know that there's a tool. Use it as a tool. If it's going to be a supplement for a while, let it be a supplement. But don't make it the main thing, because you will be stunting life. You will be stunting experiences that you would have, and you're missing out on opportunities if you get yourself to the point where you're just, what's the word? Thor, what's the word that Rollo always says about porn?
Dating.
Yes, sedated. All right. So you don't get yourself to the point where you're sedated, because then you're not doing anything. But that's all I got to say.
Perfect. Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's go to Raith's final thoughts on this topic of Spank the Monkey.
Yeah, and like I said, I think I've said it in enough of these in some of these dragon ships and other places. I don't have a problem with porn. I don't have a problem with masturbation. What I have a problem with is men not developing themselves and trying to strive every day to find their true happiness. Because if you're feeling shame and you're feeling guilt because you're masturbating, there's something underlying thing going on that's preventing you from actually realizing what happiness is, what fulfillment is, and what your value is. That's a problem, guys. You should always strive to be the best you. And if you're not working on that, then you're probably going to be stuck down in your mom's basement with your sex doll or your fleshlight or whatever it is you use, sitting there saying, I'm not worth having a woman in my life, and then rationalizing that by saying women aren't worth being in my life. Everyone needs intellectual, emotional, and physical interaction with people. And from a sexual output standpoint, that means women, unless you're gay. Don't deny yourself the ability to have that. And you are denying yourself if you choose the route of masturbation, porn addiction, or supplements, I guess is the best way that Glenn put it. All right. Because some of the best memories I have in my life is having sex with a woman. And I value that. But you have to develop, and I talked about intimacy. The first step to understanding intimacy is developing that intimacy with yourself. And that means being truthful to yourself, being able to understand your needs, your desires, your fantasies, and figuring out ways to execute those. Because you're never going to have intimacy with anyone else if you don't have that. You're never going to be able to love anyone if you can't love yourself. And you're never going to be able to respect other people if you have no self-respect. The whole universe of what you need in life and how you exhibit yourself as a man is within you. And if you're not exploring yourself and trying to figure out what those needs are and what you want to put in your frame of how you want to live your life, then Thor's new enterprise of the Shield Maiden sandwich combo, I guess he'll make $1 million off of it, or probably $100 million off of it. But it all starts with you. It all starts with you working on you and understanding why you do the things you do, and looking into yourself by yourself or with the help of someone else to figure that out. Back to you, Thor.
Thank you. That's very poignant and very appreciated. I don't know, man. I think I could pimp, Shield Maiden apparatus with sandwiches pretty good, for sure, I mean, it's always better for us to have sex with the person we love the most, right? Oh, wait, that would be me. Oh, okay. Huds, what do you got to say about this topic?
That's funny. Yeah, sex with me. That's masturbation then. That's funny. We've really covered everything. I think that it goes back to what we were saying before with some of these things. Porn, I still believe porn is a privilege, not a right. Some of these things are privileges, not rights. So you can't just go ahead and do this if you're not capable as a man. You need to be able to go out and get women. You need to be able to have relationships. You need to be somebody that these women want before it's okay to jack off like that. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in that cycle where it's a lot easier. Okay, let's say you got a long day at work, whatever, and then instead of going on the dating apps or going out on an actual physical date, you're gonna jerk off instead and then go back to bed, and it's another day. And I think that that's really the piece I wanted to hone in on, is that this, porn and masturbation can be a sedation. It's not something to be ashamed of, but it can be a sedation, and a sedation from having the actual relationships that you want to have. So that's really all I need to say on it.
Well, thank you, Huds. That was good. Mark, what are your final thoughts on this? Mark, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I told Glenn a quote is, "Blessed is the man who doesn't condemn himself for what he does." Each person is different. If you're masturbating and it doesn't bother you, and are you watching porn and you don't have a problem with it, you don't feel guilt or shame about it or remorse or regret, then maybe that's okay for you. But if you get done masturbating or watching porn and you think, God, I wish I did that again. Man, I wish I could stop that. Then you got a problem with it. And that's a symptom of a deeper problem, like Raith talked about. So each person has to evaluate themselves to find out what's right for them. And also, Raith mentioned about constructs. Yes, so much of our guilt and shame is because it's been passed down to us or we've been programmed with it. We're not born with that. So then again, you need to evaluate and ask yourself, do some self-inventory and ask yourself, why do I do this? How do I feel when I'm done? Do I feel better, worse? Do I have guilt? Do I have shame? A man needs to take an inventory and then decide, is what he's doing taking him to where he wants to go or not? So my thing is just look at yourself, ask yourself these questions, and then decide for yourself.
Oh, excellent. Excellent advice. I appreciate that, Mark. Randall, any final thought on this? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So as a man, I can understand the temptation to do it. And like Phil said earlier, we all have done it. But if that's all you're doing, then you need to stop. You got to start fulfilling your needs and desires in other ways. I won't live in an absolute and demonize it all, but I think that as men, unless you're at a level that you deem satisfactory, then you need to delay the gratification and put in the work and get to the gym, get out, go socialize, talk to people in real life. They're nice. I tell you, they are. But other than that, just keep working on yourself.
Thank you, Randall. I appreciate that very much. Philip Foster, my brother from another mother.
Yes, sir.
Savage berserker. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts on this, gentleman. There's so many smart minds on this stream right here, right now. And, Raith and what he said, and that hit home for me. And that's the great thing about this stream is every week, I'm around these guys and I learn something new. And it's the same thing with Mark as well, making that self-inventory. Here's the deal, man. As a man, you know what's right and wrong in the back of your head. You know if it's affecting your life. And that's the thing, right? Is if you're addicted to a screen and other things in your life are falling apart, you got an issue there, bro. And it's real simple. Just let me tell you something like this. Delaying that gratification, kind of like Randall had mentioned, is important. It's not a right. It's a privilege. Like Huds said, you got to understand that you have to put in the work. Okay. If you're unfulfilled in your life, and it's because you're living an untrue life, the untrue life is being addicted to the pixels on that screen. Okay. You're not being true to yourself. You're living a lie. So my advice to a guy that might be in that situation is to take a step back from that for a minute and realize that that dopamine hit is literally everywhere. You can open up Instagram, they got the booties and the titties out. You can get on Twitter, they got the booties and the titties out. You can get on Facebook, the booties and the titties are out. You got 4K porn on your phone, you got 4K porn on your tablet, you got it on your laptop, and you got it on your desktop. The thing is understanding that having a real connection with a real human being is more important than that dopamine hit over and over with those pixels. You have a relationship with a screen. You have a relationship and you're transferring sexual energy while you're watching another man put in double overtime on a woman on a screen. Okay? Now let's flip the script a little bit. In a natural situation, you got fantasies in your head. You feel the urge. Maybe you don't have a woman in your life right now. You don't have a screen in your hand. You have your fantasy in your mind, and you beat the meat. Hey, that's one thing to do. Okay. Number 2, start looking to women for that. Understand that you will have a much more fulfilled life when you start letting go of those pixels and you start looking to women to meet those needs and satisfactions and desires that you have in your mind. The thing is you got to let go of that shame, kind of like what Randall was saying and what I said earlier in the stream. You know, you are so ashamed to say, hey, this is what I really like. And when you get around a woman, you're like, oh man, if I tell her what I really want from her, what if I tell her, hey, this is who I am and this is what I desire, but oh, she's going to judge me. She's going to think less of me. I'm not going to be able to shoot my shot. Then you're going to go through the rest of your life unfulfilled. Because the thing is it doesn't matter if you're married or if you have a girlfriend or if you're dating or if you're just talking to people. It just doesn't matter. When you sit these people down and you look them square in the face and say, hey, this is what I'm about and this is what I want from you. In that moment, guess what happens? Your needs, you don't really need anything. Your wants and desires are being met. Number 2, you're fulfilling her because she is looking at you and saying, hey, this guy's actually, for the first time in my life, because most women don't ever have that because guys are so friggin' ashamed and scared of women that they don't do that. She's looking at you and going, man, this dude's something else, man. He's going to tell me exactly what he wants. He's told me exactly what he wants. And you know what? I like him enough. I want to be with him enough. I want to satisfy him because let's face it, women want to please their man. She's going to give it to you, bro. So quit being addicted to another man dicking down a woman on a screen and start living your life to its fullest. Delay that gratification. Make that self-inventory. You know, and be true to yourself, like Raith said. I mean, those are all solid gems right there. And literally, I gleaned every one of those pieces off of this closing comment thing right now. Gentlemen, don't believe the hype. You're a natural human being. Part of being natural and being a human being is ejaculating, man, coming. You know, you got desires and needs and wants and all these things in your head. Live them out. But to get to that next level, be true to yourself. Be direct with the other person in your life, your partner, whoever it might be, and literally get out of your comfort zone and tell them exactly what you want. When you live like that, it's like your armor becomes like 4 inches thick. Nothing can hurt you. Because when you live in the truth and you're true to yourself, guess what? It doesn't matter in the end. So quit being ashamed and let that stuff go. That's what I got, Thor.
Oh, that was beautiful, man. I absolutely agree with you. I got a couple final thoughts on this. I agree with you on all that. It's very, very poignant. So for me, you know, Thor carries a heavy meat hammer. Sometimes it must be polished. You know, sometimes it must be thrown. But it is stored in a very large toolbox with many, many tools. So there's lots of tools to use. Some of those tools are quite dangerous, actually. I have this one that's a chainsaw. Could cut my arm off if I use it improperly or I overuse it. But then I also have this fine scroll saw that I can use and get into the intimate details of working that wood or whatever it might be. So I would advise you all to have a very large toolbox and carry a heavy meat hammer. So as a libertarian at nature, spank the monkey away, guys. Doesn't bother me a bit. Neither does the semen retention. More for Thor. So with that, I sure appreciate every member of the panel. Bring them all up, guys. One more time, I'm going to ask where we can find you guys. We'll go round circle. Where can we find you? And then we'll go ahead and end the broadcast. Glenn, where can we find you?
Yo, you guys, I got Paul Benjamin on the phone right now, but I got
Hi,
Apex
Paul.
Mindset
Skull.
right on the phone. He told me to say what's up to you guys. You know, check out Big Brothers. We're gonna be doing our show twice a week, Tuesdays, and then we have Thursdays on Thursday, obviously, when we bring the ladies on the show. So stay tuned to that, and until next time.
Raith, where can we find you? You're muted.
Muted.
You can find me at Raith_Deantior on Instagram, Facebook, and Telegram. And if you're just want to have a conversation, hit me up in the chats and we'll have a conversation.
Thank you, Raith. Huds, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at the Hudsman across all platforms. Instagram's the best way to reach me. If you have a question, anything like that, I've got some spots open for dating coaching. And then also the Your Big Brothers podcast. We are expanding. So we'll keep you updated on those things. And if you want to go ahead and follow, we just started an Instagram and a YouTube channel. I'll give the YouTube information later, but if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's just at Your Big Brothers. So just go ahead and look it up.
Awesome. Randall, where can we find you?
So I don't really have
Here on the
any
DragonShip.
branded things, but make sure you guys are subscribed to the new channel. I am uploading clips from our longer episodes like this, and I will soon be delving into the archives of the panel members, and you will start to see older content from them that it's just truly gems that I think every man can pay attention to. And one day you might see me with my own channel. Who knows?
That's fantastic, Randall. Just so everybody knows, Randall is our manager of our new channel, which is the DragonShip, which is our multi-platform channel where all of these men can be found as branded members of the DragonShip, and you can see their individual content as well. We support all of that content through the DragonShip, and for each individual member, Randall's kind of in charge of that and really helping us a lot. Thank you so much, Randall. It's a pleasure having you on. Mark Daniels, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Mark's Inspiration, or here on YouTube at Mark Daniels Mark's Inspiration, or you can check me out on my website. If you need a consultation, I'd be glad to help you. That's at marksinspiration.com. And where's the other place? I think that's it. Got a couple books on Amazon. You can check those out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. Phil Foster from Phil Foster's Fitness, and of course the DragonShip and his own YouTube channel. Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me across all platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Phil Foster _. You can find me at philfosterfitness.com. We got your hormones. We got your supplement lines. We got your training. I just want to see my fellow man win. Once again, man, this is a great show. I'm so glad to be a part of this panel with you, Thor, and the rest of the gentlemen here. I learn something every week just spending this time with you guys, and I appreciate each and every one of you and your insights, man. This is an awesome thing that we're doing. And once again, man, you guys have a great week, and thanks for tuning in.
Well, thank you, Phil, so much. I appreciate every one of you guys. What a great show. You bring so much to me. The DragonShip, I'm so proud to be a part of this with you guys. It's really quite enhancing. You can find me at becomedurable.com, where I actually sell my lecture series, Mastery of Oneself. It's a 6-part series of video lectures that I've done in various seminars. And you can certainly purchase those there, or you can book individual consultations with RP Thor. With that, I'd like to take us out in a special way today. Huds, the cue is on you.
You got it, man.
Full screen if you can.
You got it?
No, we're not seeing it. Go ahead.
How often do you masturbate?
Daily, like 5 times a day, like switch hitter, just bam, 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 bam. Like, you know what? When you shook my hand earlier, I just finished in the car.